Hi everyone, and thank you so much for watching my channel, The Witty Turtle. My name is Anvesha, and right now I'm a CMA finalist. So in this class, we are going to solve one very important question, which is there in your CMA Inter and also in CMA Final, right? So this question is based on the concept of duality of linear programming, or you can say dual equations. Uh, Till now, whatever we have studied that comes under the primal equation. Now we are going to study dual equation. So today we are going to understand the entire concept and steps for dual equation, and then we will solve one question, right? So before solving the questions, let me make a small announcement here that I'll be taking the first class of activity costing on the platform of Unacademy tomorrow, right? Which is a Saturday and 28th of October. And the timing is from 8 to 9 p.m. This class is relevant for both CMA Inter and CMA Final students. So in CMA Inter new syllabus, that is syllabus 22, the students are having activity based costing for 10 marks in their paper number 12, which is management accounting, and it is there in CMA final, both old and new syllabus. And this is a category chapter, by the way, for CMA final students. So don't miss this opportunity. You simply need to click on the link which is given in the description box below, and you have to put your phone number over there. One OTP will be received and your sign up will be done, and you will be notified when I'll go live on the app of Unacademy. If you're using any smartphone, then you can install the app of Unacademy, or else in your computer or laptop, you can simply go to the website of Unacademy and can attend my class over there. This is going to be free of cost, and yes, this is going to be in English. So since most of the students are asking me to conduct the classes in English only, so this class is going to be in English. So all my non-Hindi speaking friends can take advantage of this, right? So yeah, see you tomorrow on the platform of Unacademy. So before starting the concept of duality in linear equation, linear programming problem, first we need to understand what are the two ways to increase profit. The first way is obviously to reduce cost, and the second way is to increase your revenue, right? So when it comes to increasing your revenue, then we have to use the maximization function, right? The objective function will be to maximize the sales revenue. And when it comes to reducing cost, so in that case we need to go for minimization function, right? The objective function should be to minimize the cost, be it material, be it labor, or anything else. So when we are talking about primal equation, so whatever we have done till now, all those techniques come under primal equation, right? So let's take a small example here. So there are two products, A and B, and to produce these two products, we need raw material X and Y. So profit per unit of A is rupees 5, and for B it is rupees 8. And to produce 1 unit of product A, we need raw material X, 1 kg of X and 2 kgs of Y. Similarly, to produce 1 unit of B, product B, we need 2 kgs of X and 3 kgs of Y. Here also the availability of X and Y are given to us. So what is that? 50 kg for X and 60 kg for Y. So in this case, when we are talking about primal equation, वही है primal equation जो हम आज तक पढ़ते आ रहे हैं, right? It is very easy. Obviously, the objective function is to maximize profit, right? To maximize Z. So in this case, we are taking A and B. So maximize Z is the objective function, which is obviously 5A plus 8B, because we are trying to maximize the profit amount, right? And what are the two constraint functions here? The two constraints given to us are availability of the raw materials, right? Which is scarce in nature. We have less raw materials available to us. So the constraint functions are 1A plus 2B should always be less than or equal to 50 kg, because here we need when we are talking about real X, so we need 1 kg for product A and 2 kgs for product B, and total we are having 50 kgs. So whatever amount we will use in making product A and B, that should be up to 50 kgs. like it can either be lesser than 50 kgs or it can be equal to 50 kgs, right? So here the first equation will be 1a plus 2b should be less than or equal to 50. Similarly, when it comes to raw material y, so in this case 2a plus 3b should be less than or equal to 60 kgs because we have this much of raw materials only, right? So in this case what happens, जो भी हम लोग यूज करेंगे वो 60 kg से कम या फिर it should be equal to 60 kg. So this is something which we have been studying till now. But when it comes to dual equation, okay, so this is all primal equation. But when it comes to dual equation, so in that case, what do we have to do? We have to focus on reducing the usage of these two things. Whatever constraint we are having, we have to our objective is to reduce the usage of those two constraints. कम से कम use होना चाहिए उसका, ठीक है? So it says when your objective function is to maximize, so in that case we are using this less than or equal to symbol. There will always be less than or equal to sign, right? But when we are talking about dual equation or dual problem, so in that case what happens, you have to convert your objective function which was to maximize, now you have to convert that to minimize, right? We have to focus on the second way. मैंने class के starting में बोला था that we have two ways, either we can increase our revenue or we can decrease the cost. Both way we are going to get more profit, right? Both ways we can increase our profit. So this is the primary equation, and in case of dual equation we are focusing on how to reduce the cost, right? Or how to manage everything within the availability of the limited resource. So here the objective function will be obviously to minimize z, and now we have availability of x and y. So here our objective is to reduce this, right? So now we have written that it will be 50x plus 60y. So we have to reduce this, right? The addition of these two raw materials, the usage of these two raw materials should be lesser, should be minimized. So in this case, what will be the constraint function? That anyway we have to make this much of profit. So here when we are reversing the table, what is happening? The availability of raw material has become the objective function. But here in this case, by using lesser number of materials, raw materials, you have to maintain this much amount of profit, right? You have to get this profit. So now earning this amount of profit is your constraint function. So you have to design all those equations in such a way that you can achieve that much of profit which you were earning before also, right? So here the constraint function will be 1x plus 2y. 1x, why is it 1x? Because to get this much of profit you need this much of raw material, right? So 1x plus 2y should be more than or equal to 5. Why is it more than or equal to 5? Because obviously in dual case, when the objective function has become the opposite thing, like it has become क्या बोलते हैं इसको, ये उल्टा हो गया है ना, पहले maximize था फिर minimize हो गया है. So obviously this sign and the entire equation will also change. Similarly in this case, now for product B, what will it be? It will be like 2x plus 3y should be more than or equal to 8. Why is it more than or equal to 8? Because when it comes to profit, we don't have any limits, right? You can get more profit also. ऐसा थोड़ी ना है कि profit ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इतना होना चाहिए. Like in case of profit, there is no upper limit. But in case of cost, there is an upper limit, right? Profit में आप जितना ज़्यादा हो सकता है, you can earn that. So that is why this is the lower limit which has been specified. So 1x plus 2y should be more than or equal to 5. 2x plus 3y should be more than or equal to 8. And obviously the non-negative function, right? So I hope by now you have understood what is the basic idea of introducing a dual problem. Now let's read the theory of that. Primal and dual of linear programming. When we formulate any equation under LPP, which is your primal, then we have two objectives, either in form of maximization or in form of minimization. If we convert maximization objective into minimization objective or vice versa, then it is called dual linear programming. So here it is written vice versa, which if your earlier like your primal equation was to minimize, then you can also convert that to maximization objective when you are going for dual LP, right? Now let's understand what are the conditions or steps to be fulfilled while converting primal to dual. So if objective function is maximization, then all the constraints must be of this type, right? And if the objective function is minimization, so in that case the constraints must be more than or equal to. In the previous example we saw this. Now here, what is the step 1 in this case? The step 1 is, if the above condition is not fulfilled, then it must be converted by multiplying RHS and LHS, both the sides, with -1. Okay. So if this thing is not there in your equation, or it is not possible to convert them, then in that case you can multiply -1 in both the sides, right? For example, this is a case of maximization. Okay, the objective function is max z. So the equation is given as 2x plus 3y is more than or equal to 20, right? More than or equal to 20. So you need to convert this by multiplying -1. So what will it become? It will become -2x minus 3y is less than or equal to -20. Why is it becoming less than or equal to? Because obviously we are converting to dual, so this sign will be exactly the opposite sign. And also this is a common sense, because we are multiplying -1 in both the sides, so obviously this sign will also change, right? Similarly, in the second example, now the objective function in this case is minimization, but the constraint function which has been given to us is like this. It is in less than or equal to form. But here we have studied that in case of minimization, all the constraints must be in more than or equal to type. So now we need to convert this, right? So what do we need to do? We need to multiply -1 on both the sides. -3x minus 5y should be more than or equal to -50, right? Now, I think there is nothing much to understand in this. You simply need to remember the steps. Now the second step says that if any constraint is equal to type, then it shall be replaced in two constraints. One in this less than or equal to type, and the other one is more than or equal to type. And now convert this less than or equal to type into more than and equal to type if the objective is minimization, and vice versa. Now when you are having one equation which is this, okay, so this is which type? This is equal to type, right? So what is it saying? Then you have two options. One is you can do it like this, which is your less than or equal to or more than or equal to. But if the objective is saying that it is minimization, then you have to follow this rule. You have to convert that into this, right? And if the objective function is saying maximization, then you have to convert this into this. Now in this case, you simply need to remember one thing, that in case of maximization this sign is there, and in case of minimization this sign is there. If this is not matching, then in that case you have to go for dual, right? Now here let's take an example. So this equation is an equal to type. Now for example, we are converting that into maximization objective function. So in this case it should be like this, right? So it is there, then no need to convert, right? You can see no conversion has been made here. But in case the objective function is maximization, but the constraint function is like this, so in this case this needs to be converted, right? So what you need to do? You need to multiply -1 in this case. Here there is no conversion needed, so we have not multiplied -1. Here conversion is needed, so we have multiplied -1. Now let's say this equation has the objective function of minimization. So in this case, which sign should be there? This more than or equal to sign should be there. So in this case, we have more or equal to sign in this equation. So here no conversion is needed. This is the correct equation. So you don't need any conversion in this case, right? But when it comes to this particular equation, so here what has happened? This is the wrong one. So in this case, what do you have to do? You have to multiply -1 on both the sides. So here also this will become -1. Okay. Yeah, -100. Now, let's go to step 3. Step 3 says that now convert adjusted equation as below. Objective will be converted from maximization to minimization or vice versa, obviously. So these are basically the steps to adjust the equation as dual after the conversion, right? So obviously the first thing is to convert the objective function from maximization to minimization. Now, the second point says that variable will be converted into constraints and constraints will be converted into variable. Now, the second point is saying here the same thing. I told you in the beginning of the class that the tables will turn now, right? Now, like the earlier, your objective function was focusing on this, but after conversion, your objective functions will focus on this. It will concentrate on this particular thing, right? So it is saying the very same thing, that you have to convert the constraints into variables and variables into constraints, right? Third point says that sign of constraint will be changed from this to this and vice versa, obviously. Now the fourth point is that the name of the variables will change. Name of the variables will change. In this case also, what were the first variables? A, B, right? And in this case, we have taken variable x and y. Why is it happening? Because the variable which is representing here is different from what is there in dual. The variable a and b, they are representing one unit of product a and b. But this variable x and y, they are representing one variable of raw material x and y. These are raw materials, these are finished goods, right? So we need to keep that in mind. This is an important point. The variable's name will be changed. Now you can simply convert that into a matrix. Then you can convert row into column and vice versa. Now the meaning of these 2 points we will understand while solving questions. Now let's take a small example here. The objective function is maximize z, which is equal to 13x1 plus 12x2. Now what are the 2 constraint functions? The constraint functions are given as x1 minus 4x2 is less than or equal to 10. And the second equation says that 2x1 plus 3x2 should be more than or equal to 5. Right? Now, the adjusted primal will be what? In this case, we can see the objective function is to maximize. But in this case, what is happening? This one is correct. But in this case, the sign is not correct. So now we need to convert that. So while converting, this will remain as it is. But we need to change the second equation by multiplying -1 on both the sides and by changing the side of the constraint, the sign of the constraint from this to this, right? Now this is clear, I think. Then we can go for dual. Now what is dual in this case? In this case, we have to, when we are talking about the constraints, so what are the 2 constraints in this case? One is 10, one is -5. So when we are converting this primal into dual, so in that case, what will happen now? In this case, your this equation, objective equation, which is the objective function, which is maximize z, and here we are maximizing these 2 things. Now these 2 things will become the constraints and we have to focus on minimizing these 2 things, right? Simply you need to turn your copy, you need to turn your answer sheet and you need to see what is on the other side and you need to convert that into minimization object. So in this case, now what will be the objective function? Minimize z, which is equal to 10y1 minus 5y2. Why is it minus? Because in the last equation only we have multiplied minus 1 on both the sides, and now this has become minus 5. You can see we have taken two different variables. Now, what are the two constraint functions in this case? I told you the new constraints are these two things. So obviously, if these are costs, then these are the profits. So in this case, now what will happen? Minimization, this sign. Minimization, this sign. Right? y1 minus 2y2 should be more than or equal to 13, and here also this is more than or equal to 13. One more point, no need to change the sign of non-negative function. This will be always of more than type. Yeah, obviously, because in non-negative function we are signifying that these two variables are more than 0, right? More than or equal to 0. So I hope your concept till now is clear. And now let's start with question number 10, which is there in the new syllabus of CMA Inter syllabus 2022. So now let's read the question first. It says that 1 unit of product A contributes rupees 7, which means this is the contribution or the profit from 1 unit of A. And it requires 3 units of raw material and 2 hours of labor. Okay. 1 unit of product B contributes rupees 5 and requires 1 unit of raw material and 1 hour of labor. Availability of raw materials are given here. Now the question has asked you to formulate it as a linear programming problem, and also you have to write its dual. Okay. Now whatever we have studied in the question, this I have converted into a table format. So here, this is the availability of raw material and direct labor, which is 48 units of raw material and 40 labor hours are available with us. And to produce 1 unit of product A, we need 3 units of raw material and 2 labor hours. Similarly, to produce 1 unit of B, we need 1 unit of raw material and 1 labor hour. And the contribution from product A is 7 rupees and product B is 5 rupees. Now, in this case, let's take x1 and x2 are number of units of product A and B, right? So in this case, what is our objective function? Whenever contribution or profit or sales are given, then obviously the objective function is to maximize the contribution. So here it will be, objective function will be max z equals to 7x1 plus 5x2. Right? And now in this case, what are the two constraint functions? The constraints are obviously the availability of the resources. So what is the first constraint function? It is 3x1 plus x2. It should be less than or equal to 48 units. Similarly, what is the second constraint function? It will be 2x1 plus x2 should be less than or equal to 40. This is for raw material, this is for direct labor. Obviously, the non-negative function in this case will be x1 and x2, these are less than or equal to 0. Sorry, more than or equal to 0. So that was about the first point. The second point obviously says about the dual function. So in this case, what will be the objective function? Here in the first point it was maximization, so here it will be minimization. So min z equals to, in this case, what do we have to minimize? We have to minimize those things which were the constraints in the previous point, in the primal. So the constraints were these two. Now we have to minimize these two things. So in this case, here we have taken y1 and y2 as the dual variables indicating the shadow prices of raw material and labor respectively. So here the objective function will be what? Minimize z equals to 48 y1 plus, next is what? 40 y2, right? This is your objective function. And in this case, what are the two constraints? The constraints will be obviously to use less raw material and less labor hours, and with that to maintain at least this much of contribution. Like the contribution should be more than or equal to this much, the existing contribution, right? So here the first constraint function is obviously 3y1 plus 2y2 is more than or equal to rupees 7, or you can write simply 7. The second point is what? y1 plus y2 should be more than or equal to 5, right? So these are two constraint functions, and non-negative function is y1 and y2 are more than or equal to 0, right? I hope this is clear by now. So if you have really understood what I taught you in today's class, then do let me know in the comment section below. Like this video and share this video with your CMA Inter and CMA Final friends, so that everybody can be benefited by this. And yes, please subscribe to my channel so that I'll reach 10k subscribers as soon as possible, so that I'll be more motivated to upload more videos for you.